under the Workforce Investment Act. I'm here today to introduce to you our guest speaker, who I'm very excited to get to introduce to you. I met this young man, Robert, about 3 or 4 months ago, I think. Robert came into the Career Center looking for a job. I had a lot of questions for him, the same questions that we always ask our customers, and I got to learn a lot of interesting things about Robert. He was very determined to find a job working for a lawyer. He wants to go to school. He's going to school to be a paralegal. But I must say, Robert had some serious barriers to employment when he came to my office, so I thought, well, this is going to be challenging. But fortunately, he had such a determination to find employment in the area that he was interested in, he was able to accomplish that. And I will introduce him to you by saying, I'll never forget one Friday morning, I got to work and the electricity was out. And so I was like, oh good, the electricity's out. You know, what are we going to do for a few minutes? And so we're scrounging around trying to find matches, not matches, but flashlights to see. And all of a sudden this girl, the receptionist, comes back and she says, I think your new boss is here. And I'm like, my new boss, you know, this is when Debbie was gone and Manon was kind of filling in. And I'm like, oh, Manon wasn't probably actually even there yet. And I'm like, I don't think I have a new boss. And she said, well, there's this real tall guy. And he's dressed really nice, and he looks like he could be your boss. So I said, okay, I got to meet this guy. So Robert comes back, and come to find out it was Robert, and I'd already met Robert. I'd spent 3 or 4 meetings with him. And Robert was determined that he was going to find a job that day. And so he asked me if I would make copies of his resume, and when electricity came back on, we did make 30 or 50 copies of his resume. And he was going to pound the pavement. And by pounding the pavement, I mean he was going to walk the streets of Bowling Green until he found a job at a lawyer's office. And that was about 8:30 that morning when he left. And when he came back around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, he still had a big grin on his face, but he was worn out. And I'm not even sure if the man ate lunch that day, to be honest with you. But he had a list of every lawyer in Bowling Green, and he had a check mark, and he had notes out beside it. Who he had left a resume with, whom he got to speak to, you know, and he had some leads for me to go talk to for him. So what we decided to do with Robert is, so that you'll all know, one of the services that we provide is to do on-the-job training. And our Jill Lewis, where's Jill? Jill Lewis back here is our on-the-job training coordinator. And so I got to introduce her to Robert. And together we worked, and with Robert's big-time help, to get him a job working for Brad Kaufman here. And so Brad did, you know, Robert a great favor, but I also think Robert did Brad a great favor by going to him, because I think he got a good employee. And with no further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Robert Spiers.
Hello. 2000 year was a horrible year for me. No. 2000 year was the sum total of several horrible years that came crashing in when I suffered a nervous breakdown. And it culminated on November the 8th, 2001, when I was arrested for holding up 3 banks. One was in Colorado, one was in California, and one was in Scottsville, Kentucky. As I laid on the bunk that night in the Warren County Regional Jail, crying, humiliated, a night after I purged my soul to law enforcement officers here in Bowling Green about my crimes, I just asked myself, how did I get to this place? Just months prior, I was attending Western Kentucky University, where I was pursuing a degree in religious studies, searching my soul for the answer on what life really means. My main purpose for being here at Western was to walk on the basketball team. And what better place to do that than the 9th winningest program in NCAA history? I found my courage to finally pursue that dream after my younger sister, Renee Spiers, died in a car accident. See, prior to that, I was living several years of a self-defeated lifestyle. And who needs enemies when you defeat yourself? She died in the San Francisco Bay Area in a car accident. But her life, which was filled with as much of the abuses and neglect that I suffered myself, was one that showed me that it took tenacity and drive to really pursue the dreams that we have. So my initial college experience was successful in only one area. I met the classiest and most beautiful young lady I've ever met in my life. And I have developed a friendship with her at the time that was the best in my life. But my state of heart and mind at the time was one to where I could not pursue anything further with her because I knew she deserved to be honored and respected. And I knew I couldn't even do that for myself. So by pursuing anything more with her, I would just ruin that relationship. So I laid on the bed that night and I ached in my soul, not only for the victims of my crimes, not only for my mother, not only for my friend, but I also ached for myself. I asked myself the most personal question that we always ask ourselves. The question that gets each of us out of bed in the morning times and to pursue a life that is worthy of hard work and respect. Or a life that allows us to just disengage, to be lazy, to pursue or to take drugs or all those things that defeat us. And that question is, what value do I really have? What does life really mean? Does my life mean anything? Hello, my name is federal prisoner number 07533-033. On November 4th, 2003, I was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison. When I arrived at the federal prison 2 years after this began, I was a nameless, faceless individual in a system built with concrete and cold steel. But deep inside, the Spirit of God was answering the question that I asked myself, that my life holds value. So I began taking the most vigorous inventory of my life in order to correct the errors in my thinking and my patterns of behavior that led me to the place that I was. I engaged in groups that allowed me to deal with many of the wounds that had happened to me in my early life. And by God's grace, He held a Northern Star in front of me, my young classy friend from college who embodied to me the foundation of the life that I wanted to live. I hate using cliches, but I literally rolled up my sleeves and began the gut-wrenching work to rip out the weeds in my heart and soul, and in their place plant seeds of the very behaviors and traits that make American citizens some of the best people on this planet. I became the hardest worker I knew. I worked in the federal prison industries, known as Unicord, and very quickly rose to the top of the inmate workforce in that organization. I participated in every program the Federal Bureau of Prisons had to offer, including things like anger management, victim impact classes, and many others, some kind of trivial. With the huge legal trouble I found myself in, I enrolled in a legal training course through a reputable school. I was blessed to have many people from Western Kentucky University support me throughout this entire process. And I re-enrolled at Western Kentucky University and Louisiana State University. I kept my head down and worked to satisfy all I knew. And I worked to create my new modus operandi, which I found in the biblical book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 23, which, paraphrased, states, "Do everything for God, not for man, so you will always achieve your best results." Year after year, I worked the gruelingly painful task to recreate my life, to transform who I was as a man. Every mundane task, every paper I wrote for school, every interaction I had with others was set around the one concept that we all have value in God. We all have value in ourselves. When things would get to be too overwhelming and I would think, and thoughts of giving up would come in, I would look up to my Northern Star and remember my beautiful friends from school and know that she deserved a man who would never give up, regardless on how difficult and how hopeless things seemed. I would recommit and put my head down again, blocking out the idle chatter of hopeless men in a hopeless situation in order to protect my mind and my heart from the diseased thoughts that creep into the human soul and allow us to act in ways unworthy of the life we are given. I took this attitude with me when I was transferred to Beaumont, Texas, and worked as a GED tutor. USP Beaumont is one of the worst prisons in American history, and it earned the reputation as Bloody Beaumont for that reason. The men there were without hope, and they had no value in themselves or the life they were given. In Beaumont, see, it's too dangerous for prison staff to actually teach because of what they represent to the prisoner. However, I knew the value in education. So I got a job in the education department as a GED student, which actually means teacher. The lack of education showed in Beaumont too. For each of the years since the USP Beaumont opened up, there was an average graduation rate of about 5 to 10 men. However, through encouraging men to work hard and showing them how to map out a program that will allow them to achieve something, the numbers blossomed. In fiscal year 2010, we had 75 GED graduates, and by the time I left there was 145 GED graduates, and we were #1 in the Bureau of Prisons for GED graduations. They started to see the value in their own lives through their hard work, and these men, most of the many dangerous men in America, humbled themselves in my classroom because I treated them with dignity and respect and value. For the 20 months I was there, I told you what the graduation rates were. In the following year, by the time I left, like I said, there was 145 GEDs. And there was a clue here to me. I transferred again here to Federal Medical Center in Lexington, Kentucky. And something inside of me, only 10 years into my prison sentence of 32 years, I knew that God was getting me ready for release. My successes started to mount. One example of my success was my academic record. In 2001, when I left Western, I had failed out that semester. I had a nervous breakdown, like I told you. My GPA was a cumulative 0.78. It's embarrassing. I graduated while I was at FMC Lexington through Western Kentucky with a GPA of 3.39. Tremendous turnaround. 1/10 of a point away from graduating with honors. While I was there, I was awarded a College Heights Foundation scholarship through Western Kentucky University to continue my bachelor's degree. Simultaneously with my studies, I was afforded the opportunity to take my case again to the United States District Court judge here in Bowling Green to revisit my sentence that defied the original intent of Congress. I represented myself in court this day. It was an awesome day. I had so many distinguished supporters there to support me. So much so that the judge kind of spazzed out a little bit and had everybody go from my courtroom to their own room downstairs. Based on the Sixth Circuit law at the time and some other factors, my time was reduced to time served. And there was 20 years knocked off my sentence. And I was afforded another chance at one of the most fundamental ideals our nation holds, freedom. With that freedom, I was able to pursue the clear direction God had given my life. I wanted desperately to pursue a legal degree to be able to fight for people who forgot the value of their own lives. I want to help our society remember that each life holds value. In doing so, the Barron River Area Development District played an integral part in helping me get started. See, when we are released from prison, we have nothing. There aren't a whole lot of programs out there for us. The largest portion of released prisoners have little to no resources finding jobs, housing, or positive role models. So I went to the Brad office on Chestnut Street, and I met Connie Kingston, and she has compassion for people. She and I developed a plan that would get me back to work. I put together a resume, and like she said, I pounded the pavement. Through the on-the-job training program offered through Brad and the work opportunity tax credit, known to some around here as WOTC, I was able to impress the distinguished Brad Kaufman enough to hire me a job, offer me a job. With the gracious assistance of Jill Lewis, we were able to enroll in the program, the OJT program, which without, I don't believe I would have had the opportunity. Since that time, I believe I have proven myself to my employer to be a worthy employee. The work the Brad office does and the Work Investment Board does is indispensable to people's lives. It is not only to ex-offenders that you guys help, as you guys well know, but this organization does have opportunity for ex-offenders. If the ideals of our nation are to be honored, we cannot forget the imprisoned. We are a nation of second chances. We are the land of the free. We are a land built on the spirit of hard work. These are just a few of the things this board here supports and promotes. I'm eternally grateful for the OJT and WOTC programs, for people like Jill Lewis and Connie Kingston, for the members of Brad and the ideals you all hold and protect, and for Brad Kaufman. I end my remarks with just two instances of hope. I told you before my name, 07533-033, no longer. My name is Robert Spiers. And my friend, my beautiful, classy female friend from school, by the grace of God, she will be with me for the rest of my life. Thank you.
So much for sharing. At this time, Mr. Greg Mears, Chief District Engineer, District 3 Highway Office.
Well, thanks for letting me follow in. I don't have a lot to say.